You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thanks so much for joining me today on this Training Thursday. We're going to take a little sidestep and go over how Ayurvedic medicine uses nutritional supplements. So in our series on the de-stress protocol and how it applies to Ayurveda, what I wanted to do was actually share with you all the Ayurvedic methodologies and how they use nutritional supplements and essentially foods in order to help people with certain diseases of the body, to help them rebalance their body, to reinvigorate their body and go on to live their healthiest life. So all of this started for me, of course, with reading the textbooks and reading all of the great authors from over in India and Sri Lanka and over in the United States. And then it was going deeper. It was actually learning from my specific mentor, my constitution, how to heal myself, which is a lot of times where it starts for a lot of us. It's getting ourselves well. It's beginning to truly understand our body, how it works, and then gleaming insights for how then we might be able to help others. Where we go wrong sometimes is believing that what worked for us is going to work for someone else. That is not always the case, but as a health practitioner, as a personal trainer, as a nutritionist, sometimes you just need to learn that on your own. You honestly do. It's like, okay, well, you didn't really realize that the higher carb, all of that wouldn't necessarily work for someone that was an endomorph. Or if you were more of the endomorphic body type, you wouldn't realize that some people on that type of diet would lose too much weight. So what we need to do is begin to realize that Ayurveda had it right all along. And what they talked about was this. They talked about always creating balance. So when someone tells me that diet doesn't work, or this diet doesn't work, or this is the best type of exercise, and people need to be moving more, or whatever it might be, I just always say, okay, well, who are we talking about? Who is the person? Because in Ayurvedic medicine, and we certainly know in bioregulatory and traditional naturopathy, and all of the real philosophies that looked at the balancing of the human body and mind, we saw that there are many things that can work for many different people. But first, you need to know that person's current state. You need to know where they're at now. And then, of course, that's called your phenotype or your Vikriti in Ayurveda. And then you need to know the person's genotype or the Prakriti. And so what we do is we look at it from two perspectives. How to help the person now. What is their issue currently going on with their body right now? Because that is actually what matters the most. Because honestly, if I look to your genes and I look to your genetics and I look all those things, I say, okay, great. But that's more important in the future, not so much now. People want to show me, hundreds of pages on their genetic single nucleotide polymorphisms and all these different, hereditary based things. And I say, totally fine. I understand. But how is that helping me right now help you get rid of H. pylori and SIBO, right? I can worry about that once I get you well, and believe it or not, so much of that actually won't matter because you'll be a healthy human being that's now balanced from the inside out. So what we do in our practice is we actually work in three ways, and I invite other health practitioners to work in the same way. We invite people, other practitioners, to do this. Help your clients need to lose weight if they weigh more than 15 to 20 pounds over their goal weight, and that's a goal of theirs. As the things that you do to help someone lose weight the healthy way will oftentimes reduce the inflammation, rebalance the blood sugar, redistribute, realign the hormones in general, reduce cortisol levels. As we burn off a lot of that body fat, now we're producing less estrogen as well. So a lot of what you need to do in order to actually lose the weight, if you do it in a healthy way, let's say you do a functional medicine detox, like the Dr. Ball detox, or you just begin to incorporate a smoothie, you begin to move your body. All of those things can oftentimes be what the person needed just to get healthy. And that's why we say, listen, if you need to lose weight, 21-day Dr. Ball detox, listen, that's it. It's less expensive than food. You can transition off very easily. You're going to reduce inflammation. and you're going to get your body healthy. Like, it's about getting healthy. It's not about losing weight. It's about getting healthy. But as you get healthy, believe it or not, you'll lose the weight if you're not meant to keep that weight on your body. So that's what we do. And then, of course, if let's say the person had 30 pounds to lose and they did the 21 days, and let's say they lost 12 and they really should have lost 15 or so. Well, that doesn't mean that it didn't work. It actually means, okay, now we need to look at what is the barrier? What's preventing you from losing more weight? Now there's a wellness-based issue, okay? We tried the weight loss part. Now what's the wellness issue? Okay, let's actually now run a thyroid adrenal hormone lab. Or if you're bloated all the time, you're bloated after even eating healthy foods, well, what's the digestive issue? Why don't we run an organic acids test? Why don't we run a stool test? We can run a food sensitivity test. We can run a stool test to see if there's a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or some type of bacterial overgrowth or H. pylori. We can begin to see what are the impediments to getting a person well. Now, I know that this is more functional medicine than Ayurvedic medicine, but I'll tell you this. When I first met my mentor, Dr. Pete, she told me this. Listen, I want you to understand this. You know, you've done all this study now in Ayurvedic medicine before you came to me. And she said, I know you're excited about it and all of that. She didn't actually say that, but, you know, in that way, she said basically what she was trying to say is like, slow down, slow down, listen to me. And because she had the wisdom, right? She had a lot more wisdom than I did. She's been doing this for many, many decades. I came in there in my mid-20s and I was, you know, all bright-eyed and intense, more intense than I even am right now. And she said, what Ayurvedic medicine would have been today is a combination of all healing medicines. Because what Ayurveda always wanted to be, was a truly integrative practice in order to rebalance a person's body. And they used everything. When I talk about the de-stress protocol that I've created, well, where is it drawing upon? Well, it's drawing upon Ayurvedic medicine. It's drawing upon bioregulatory medicine and traditional naturopathy. Like, it's drawing upon the things that we know to balance the human body. In Ayurveda, they did sauna. In Ayurveda, they did steam. They did sunbathing. They did nutrition. They did fasting. They did exercise. They did all of those things. Like, they did them all, and they worked on a person's mindset as well. A lot of people don't know this. Some of the best books I've read on psychology are actually on Ayurvedic-based psychology and Ayurvedic-based mental constitutions. We'll get to that in the future. We absolutely will. And I did talk about that. Actually, I spoke about that already on the emotional imbalances, toxic emotions, just last week in episode 972. I hope you check out that show. It's stephencabral.com/972. Do keep in mind that every week since episode 900 of the Cabral Concept, once a week I've been talking about Ayurvedic medicine and how it applies to today. You know, really, this is a 6,000-year-old form of medicine. But what held true 6,000 years ago holds true today. Someone just asked me the other day, actually, on, I believe it was Instagram, and they said, I know you wrote your book back in 2011 or so on exercise called The Man's Guide to Muscle and Strength. And, you know, it was written through a textbook company, Human Kinetics, great company, all that. Not the greatest book deal I've ever been given, but a great company nonetheless. So they said, does it apply for women? And I said, of course, you know, it applies for women. The publisher just wanted to call it for men. And I said, okay. You know, so I said, that's fine. They call for men. It's like, again, I was young. I didn't know about the whole book publishing world. I would have done different things differently today. But the content is exactly what I wanted because I had completely free reign of content. I didn't get to pick the cover. I didn't get to pick the models in the book. And I didn't get to pick the name of the book itself, but the content is exactly what I want it to be. And they said, I know that you wrote it 8 years ago or so, 7 years ago. Is it still applicable today? And I said, well, it's going to be applicable 100 years from now because it was the same direct application. I don't want to say the word applicable again, 100 years previous. And that's because it was based on foundations. Like, is Ayurveda still applicable today? Yes, it is. Of course it is. Because what does it talk about? It talks about balancing the human constitution. So essentially what my mentor said is, listen, the vitamins, the methylcobalamin, everything would have been used by Ayurvedic medicine as long as it was in its natural form. And also that it was used to balance the Vikriti, which is the current state, and allow a person to get back to their natural balanced genotype. No more would ever be done. Just what needed to be done. And that is my philosophy as well. And at the same time, would they have used functional medicine lab testing? Absolutely. A lot of people don't know this, but there's actually lab testing back 6,000 years ago, and I used to practice it myself in a lab, or in clinical practice. You would actually take a urine sample, and yes, you can use the 10-point or 11-point dipstick, which I used to do as well, check for leukocytes, check for specific gravity. I mean, I used to do all that in private practice, but my initial consultation was like 2.5 hours long. I mean, they were enormously long. Sometimes they would go 3 hours. And first of all, that's not very cost effective for the majority of the population to spend the money on 3 hours. but also it was unnecessary once I got the experience. But in Ayurveda, they used to take a drop of olive oil or sesame oil, and then they would actually put it into the urine, and you would be able to actually gauge the specific gravity. I mean, I was able to make those correlations once I started to study the biochemistry of the body through some really, really great they're obviously just through books, my virtual mentors, Manuel Ravici being one of those, and, absolutely amazing. But they were doing that 6,000 years ago. So I thought this is really advanced. All of a sudden I see that those were lab tests. But again, I've read some very obscure Ayurvedic books from many, many thousands of years ago that have been translated into English, since obviously I do not speak, or I should say I do not read Sanskrit. So one of the things, though, I do have to share with you is that a lot of what we're doing today would still be considered an updated version of functional medicine. Anyone who tells you otherwise probably has not gone in depth enough in their study to look at what's going on with the BAMS degree, BAMS. That's the degree that you get as an Ayurvedic doctor when you study in India. And I believe I've already shared this story before, but many years ago, this is a decade ago, I was looking at Ayurvedic schools in the United States because I wanted to be an Ayurvedic doctor. And the closest thing, I could get a master's, but master's isn't what I wanted at the time, just because I didn't feel, and again, I was incorrect in my assumption, but I didn't feel that I'd be able to help people at the level that I wanted to, where now I realize that there are so many great authors and experts out there that don't have a master's degree, they don't have a doctoral degree, nor do they need it, because they've read many, many books and they have just accumulated a vast amount of knowledge. But that's neither here nor there. But anyway, there was a school out in LA, and it was going to be the first school to provide a doctoral degree. The problem was that it was in its infancy, still not where I wanted it to be. But anyway, I do hope that happens. I do hope that one day we'll be able to train Ayurvedic doctors in the United States. However, I do have to say is, again, I just wish that there was more of that true integrative doctoral degree. I think maybe one day there will be. But that is honestly what we're teaching in the integrative health practitioner or certification, is how to integrate all of them together. So getting back to that, what I want to say is that during my time when I was in internships, and this is in Ayurvedic clinics, all in India and in Sri Lanka, at every single one, there was not one that I went to and that I was a part of and that I worked actually directly with patients there where we did not use herbs in practice. They were an enormous part of what we did. Patients were typically given to them anywhere between 3 and 6 times per day, and that even did not include the meals that were specially prepared for them with certain spices. Keep in mind, those spices are herbs, and those herbs are doing something within the body. Fruit, vegetables, those are all things that are great nourishment for the body, right? And that includes any type of protein and fats as well. Whenever you give someone a mushroom, or whenever you give someone an herb, or you give someone some type of, I would even say, flower, you're giving them an actual medicine. So that's when people talk to me like, oh, well, I'm just taking all of these mushroom blends. And I say to them, listen, that is medicine. So you just have to know what you're doing by taking those mushroom blends, because they're going to change your immune system in one way or another. Now, it could be for a very positive, but also it's going to affect certain branches of the immune system, right? If you're using some mushroom blends, they're going to boost Th1. Really great for, your common colds and things like that over the winter. And some can help to boost Th2, which is more for chronic-based issues. We just want to be cognizant that we are actually using medicine, and those are herbal-based medicines. So again, do I believe in taking mushroom blends all year round? No, not really. No, I mean, that's medicine, right? Just like I don't recommend taking even a great herb like ashwagandha if you don't need it, right? Because if your stress is balanced, your cortisol levels are balanced, you don't need it. Now, you might be laughing on the other end saying, I'm always stressed. And yeah, so that might be true. Then maybe you would do really well with something like Adrenal Soothe, at least, to at dinner time, to calm cortisol at night, which has been shown to help decrease Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, chance for cardiovascular disease, stroke, etc. So, there's a time and a place. I'm going to get to that as well, because there's 3 main ways that we used herbs over in India and Sri Lanka, actually, like in Ayurvedic practice. So one thing that's important to understand too is just because we didn't use capsules like it looks like today, we use all of these like 00 capsules, vegetable capsules. In our practice, we don't use gelatin capsules, we use vegetable capsules. And again, I'm not against gelatin, we just try to use as few animal products as possible. And with that though, in Ayurveda, I was in the back rooms literally making these. I was in what would amount to essentially a closet in the United States. but we have all the herbs in all the jars, and we're using I never remember that, but it's like a mortar and pestle, I think it's called. And what I would do is take the fresh herbs. They were dried, I should say, the dried herbs, but they were in an elongated, maybe it was a piece of bark or something like that. And I would grind it down and I would make a powder. And then if there were multiple things specified, and of course they'd have to write it in English for me, then what I would do is I would measure it, and I would take that because the head doctor, Dr. Pereira actually was his name, would give me the instructions, right? And of course I was overseen by another doctor there. And I would crush them up and I would mix them together. And then we would use something such as ghee, or we would use raw honey to roll them into a ball. Now, keep in mind that looks like a capsule, right? Because essentially it is. It's a vitamin or it's a mineral. It isn't actually like a vitamin mineral, but that's what it would look like. And you'd swallow it down. Like a patient would literally swallow it down. They wouldn't chew on it because they were very, very bitter, right? Because these are herbs we're talking about. A lot of these things you're getting in capsules right now, which are great for you, are extremely bitter. And in Ayurveda, they have a little saying called bitter is better. And bitter is one of those things that can be very detoxifying for the body, very balancing. And a lot of us are missing that. So in Western-based societies, and this goes for anyone, even if they're not in the West, but in a Western-based mindset and society, you're missing a lot of the bitter-based foods. Think about it. We have our coffee. I just spoke about this on a podcast that we did on with Mind Pump. If you haven't checked that out, it's literally one of the biggest podcasts right now. It's unbelievable how popular that show has been. I'll post it tomorrow. So today's episode 979, stephencabral.com/979. Do check out the show notes for today. But make sure to tune in tomorrow when I do post the link. I'll actually just download the MP3 for you to make your life easy. And you can go to 980 will be tomorrow's show. It's obviously not out yet. So what I did was I spoke about, though, what we're lacking. And so like a lot of people are making their coffee sweet, but they're missing the bitterness. And the bitterness is actually what helps with digestion. And it helps with a lot of purification of the body. Happy to go into that more in the future if you would like. The different tastes of different foods, which actually do have an effect on the body. Just like over in India, again, another thing that I learned. I'm like, why are those people eating with their hands like animals, right? That's like my Western-based mindset. They're animals. Like they could be using a fork right now. And that's just me passing judgment. Like that's all it was. Like, oh, I thought I was better. And again, I don't know how old I was, but I was younger, much younger than I am right now. And I was still a little hot-headed and, know-it-all and all that jazz, right? Well, here's what I learned, and here's what I understood with time. No one explained this to me. Probably didn't want to waste their time with me, but I didn't voice that to anyone, and I didn't actually think like that. But I saw the meeting. And I'm like, why are they? I was like, why are they not using utensils? Well, over there, I shouldn't even say that. I would just say in a lot of cultures still, it's also passed down, and it's a very interesting thing. The taste that you get in your mouth actually sends a signal to your digestive system to release the exact enzymes that's needed to break down that food, as well as ramping up the amount of hydrochloric acid that will be needed to break down the food as well. Very interesting. Well, here's another thing. The touch of food also sends signals of what this food is, using what's called that peripheral or periphery nervous system to give your body, and it actually allows you to salivate. It allows you to make the salivary amylase in the mouth. And again, other enzymes that you need. So not only was I wrong in my thinking that I'm more civilized or whatever it might be by using utensils, I was wrong in the whole philosophy that we actually think that it's better to eat with utensils than with our hands. Now, have I started going back to just eating all of my food with my hands? No, but I'm not against it. Quite enjoy it. I mean, when I was over there and I saw people doing it, I'm like, hey, when in Rome, why don't I join in? And it was quite enjoyable, to be honest with you, everything was given a chapati and you were given naan. And so that was like, the time of my life being able to eat all that and kind of bring everything together. But the truth is that actually has been shown to help with that enzymes. Now, of course, you need clean hands, right? That does matter. But the truth is that there's a lot that we still need to discover. A few things I'd like to share with you as well is I learned a lot about delivery systems with Ayurvedic supplements then as well. And that was using the honey as glucose to actually help to not only feed the good gut bacteria and allow it to then use any of the herbs or vitamins that might be in those herbs to be able to assimilate it better, but also when you use ghee, which is fat, it creates its own basic phospholipid. And again, how did they know this thousands of years ago in Ayurveda? We'll never really know. But it's funny that just now, over the past decade or so, we have liposomal-based products like liposomal glutathione, liposomal vitamin C, liposomal methylcobalamin for B12. And that's essentially a vitamin bound to a phospholipid, or just a fat for non-fancy speak. So in Ayurveda, what were they doing? They were binding certain herbs. We didn't even know this. They were binding turmeric, right? Curcumin way back then with ghee to allow it, and black pepper. And again, we're just discovering that over the past couple of years, that if you take turmeric and a lot of other things with black pepper or pepperine or bioperine, it allows you to get more absorption. Again, they were doing that many thousands of years ago, and I can attest from being over there and actually making these myself, black pepper and many, many things along with ghee to use it as a phospholipid. So pretty amazing. I mean, really, really amazing. When I was over there too, I mean, all of these things were being studied. A lot of people don't know that, but again, willow, right? Willow bark being used for aspirin, red yeast rice extract being used in statin drugs. We know this. Pygeum being used for prostate, stinging nettles for prostate, for breast cancer or inflammation, as well as allergies, any type of inflammation. Amla, we were using amla all the time in a dried form of the fruit and then powdered to make vitamin C. The pretty amazing thing, and that's why I love using all of the best of the plant-based medicine, and I love using all of the best of functional-based medicine, or what we'll call naturopathic medicine today. Pretty phenomenal. So now I want to give you the 3 ways in which we would always use Ayurvedic-based supplements, and that I use supplements today. A lot of people do it differently, but this is what I've seen work great and allows people to use more in the short term and then far less for their lifetime and long term, which I believe is how nutritional supplements should be used, right? We use them always. This is the way. You always use nutritional supplements to help rebalance the body. And when I did acupuncture, and I was over in China, and again, I don't practice acupuncture now because I'm not a licensed acupuncturist, but when I was over there and we were doing acupuncture, we were doing China physiotherapy and a lot of other things, right? And again, I was overseen by doctors over there. I wasn't running clinics. I was an intern over there working with patients under doctors' care. So what I would do, though, is I would always see them every single time the patients would leave. And this was a public hospital. This was for the whole community. People got bussed in. It was not a expensive clinic or anything like that. This is just for everyday people. Is everyone left with herbal products to take as well, herbal supplements. And so that went in conjunction with whatever their treatment was. So in Ayurveda, it was the same thing. Everyone, and I was in charge of this a lot of the time as well. I wasn't the only intern there. There was about a dozen of us, I believe. This is just one of the internships. It was always anywhere between 6 and about 12 of us. In China, there was 18, I believe, but only 3 English-speaking students. You can imagine I didn't have a ton of interaction with those that spoke Mandarin. I tried. I did my best. Pretty much everybody, would laugh at my expense, and I would try to speak a little bit, but I didn't care at all because I was having fun. I was enjoying, myself over there and trying to learn from others as well. But, when I was at the different clinics, especially in Sri Lanka and India, outside a person's door every single morning before essentially they got up for breakfast, all of their decoctions, which is basically a liquid-based formula they would take. So they would take liquid-based herbs, and they would then take their pills. And I would leave them in these little yellow envelopes. I still have that to this day. It's a nice little keepsake, a little memento I keep in my office to, just really bring me back to my roots of how I started. So it would have the person's name, it would have their room number to make sure that it was obviously theirs. It would tell you the time of the day, when to take them, and what to take them with food or not with food. Again, this is something we practice to this day in functional medicine, right? But what we would always do is this. We would help the person get well, okay? So whatever they were dealing with, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, obesity, rheumatoid arthritis, that was a big one, psoriasis from head to toe, that was a big one, depression, low mood, you name it. I mean, we saw it over there. I mean, honestly, because anything you see today, you could go to an Ayurvedic-based clinic. And a lot of these were live-in clinics as well. So that was a really great thing. I got to really go deep with a lot of patients and just kind of learn their story and see how they got well. And then a lot of times they would come back yearly just to maintain. So anyway, those protocols would be different because we'd be helping people get well. So they were using a lot of nutritional supplements, herbal-based products, right? And they were on special diet plans. And then they would go through their panchakarma. So this is important because I learned these people are on a lot of supplements. And the reason is because they're really sick. Their body's really imbalanced. And if food was enough, then that would have been great, but it's not going to work. I just want to get that point across because I used to be an idealist. I would believe, hey, we can fix everybody just through great food alone. What I found is this: people's digestive systems are a mess. There's all sorts of things keeping them from being able to digest all the good foods, even if they are organic or even if they are raw or even if they're whatever, right? They're unable to break down and extract the nutrients to the level they need to give their body the push that they need to be brought back to equilibrium, right? Homeostasis. And the reason is that we live in a very polluted world. Maybe if we didn't live in a polluted world, maybe it was 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, we could do it. But as I see in Ayurvedic medicine and traditional Chinese medicine, name a form of medicine. You can look at Egyptian medicine, right? They all used herbal-based supplements to get you back to where you need to be. So I simply believe that we were given these things on earth to be able to use as well to help our body get back to its true state, its optimal state, which is health. We're all meant to be healthy. So now we need to get back there. And that goes for children that are sick as well. They got sick faster because their rain barrel filled up faster. We need to get them healthy in the same way. So what we do is we get the person healthy, and then we're looking at two things. All right. After that, we're looking at the season. So if it's damp weather, if someone's more prone to becoming run down, right? If you're in New England in the winter, you need vitamin D. You give someone vitamin D. And if the immune system's a little lower during the winter, well, we would do more zinc and we would do more vitamin C, right? Would that be maybe we maintain with that? And then when we do get sick, guess what we do? Well, now we do more of the echinacea and we do more of the oregano and those types of things to get the body well. So we would always work on what the person's dealing with now, get them healthy. Then we would do their everyday living constitution. So if someone's always stressed and they're more prone to anxiety, they're probably going to do a little bit of magnesium every day. They might use a little bit of ashwagandha, right? That might be part of their physical constitution. Then, of course, eating a very well-balanced diet. And, of course, we do something like the daily nutritional support and the daily fruit and vegetable blend. Now, we use the daily probiotic support as well as part of the Dr. Cabral daily protocol. Over there, they would do something like sheep or goat-based curd or quark, they would call it. Never heard of quark before I was over there, which is basically like a soup-type yogurt that you can eat, almost like a kefir. It's got a little gelatin across the top, although it's not gelatin, and that would be something that people would get the probiotics, but they were getting those essentially on a near daily basis, or they were drinking a digestive aid called lassi. And so these are all things that, again, they were doing in Ayurveda. We're doing it today in maybe, if you want to call it updated or just a different methodology, and one that we can test. We can test all these variables, which I think is pretty amazing. So we have the seasonal modalities, we have getting people well in the first place, and then we have everyday living and balancing that person's constitution. Now, when you get to that point, though, you can use a lot less nutritional supplements. Our average person, when they're going through a protocol, might be using like 8 products or so, somewhere probably around there, maybe 9. And then after somewhere around 3 to 4 months, they've cut that in half. And then after about 6 months, they're down to maybe like 3 products or 4 products, which we base on the season. But again, it's one's an activated multivitamin or the daily nutritional support. They might be using daily probiotic support, depending on who they are, what they need. They might be doing omega-3 support to balance their omega-6s, and they're definitely doing vitamin D if it's during the winter time. So like those are just real basics. A lot of people need much more than that. I personally take more than that because my body feels better when I do take more than that because I work a lot. I have a lot of, I have family obligations. I have a lot that I want to do. And because I push hard, well, I need to what? Bring my body into balance. So I work on my sleep. I work on not over-exercising. I work on my recovery. I work on really good nutrition. And I work on using really good quality nutritional supplements in order to support the level of life that I want to live at. Now, again, if people are kind of more relaxed and they're more like, they do less, there's less output, right? If there's less output, there doesn't need to be as much input all the time. So all of these things are things that I did learn in Ayurvedic medicine. I wanted to pass along to you. I do want you to understand is that nutritional supplements have been used probably since the dawn of time with humans. And the reason is that we were given herbs, we were given plants, we were given all of these things that we can make extracts out of, that we could chew up, that we might not even swallow it, that we could make into powders. We could add things like ghee or raw honey to. I mean, we can do all of these things in order to rebalance the body. But if you look at Ayurveda, what's the end goal? The end goal is not to take nutritional supplements. The end goal is to heal the individual. And in Ayurveda, they'll do anything possible in order to rebalance the body because they understand that the only reason someone's sick, the only reason why they're not well is that their body's imbalanced. It's imbalanced at some homeostatic-based system, meaning like somewhere deep down in the body, there's an imbalance. The imbalance is not inflammation, but the imbalance is there's something going on at a much deeper level that can be figured out now through lab testing, right? We can absolutely do that. In Ayurveda, we use the pulse we tested over there. We did the urine-based testing. We did a lot of testing, but really, when in doubt, what do? Detoxification. We use the herbal-based supplements to push their constitution or their dosha back where it should be. We gave them rest. We followed the de-stress protocol. I mean, honestly, that's what I wrote about. That's what I wanted to be able to pass on to people. Hopefully, today's podcast is helpful. Love to be able to talk more about this in the future. Just let me know any follow-up questions you have. You know, it's a daily podcast. I'll be back. Just let me know the topics you want me to speak about, and I'd be happy to do that. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into the Cabral Concept. And if possible, please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could serve. Before you go, I wanted to ask you this question. What if I could teach you in just a couple of hours how to transform your thyroid, hormones, adrenal, cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, weight loss, energy, mood, brain, pregnancy, anti-aging, or many other health-related issues? After 20 years in private practice, after seeing and overseeing 250,000 client appointments, I sincerely feel I have the real-world data and have found the answer you've been searching for. So what I've done is spent hundreds of hours of my own time refining what you need to know in order to uncover your underlying root cause health issues and then begin to rebalance the body and bring it back to a state of robust health and wellness. I'm going to teach you exactly what I do in my private practice so you can understand how you got here and now what you need to do in order to heal. You'll receive all of the important success checklists, protocols, and even ways to customize it to make the program fit your busy life. And you'll get all of this at a fraction of the price. Let me save you the time, money, energy, stress, and frustration of not knowing what to do next. Instead of reading dozens of books on the topic and seeing multiple practitioners, I will condense everything that you need to know in just a few hours of video tutorials that you can watch and listen to anywhere. Together, we will make this healing process an enjoyable one that you can take with you for the rest of your life. I wish you all of the best of health and happiness, and I hope to be able to guide you on your healing journey through my Health Results Accelerators. Simply choose the health imbalance you're currently suffering from, and by the end of today, you'll know what went wrong and how to get well again. I guarantee it. For details, head over now to stephencabral.com/courses.